Our topic today is parts of an equation, and your objective for today is I can identify parts of an equation accurately, and I know vocabulary associated with an equation. Now, you already had some of this vocabulary in your little Quizlet activity that you did the other day, but we're just going to reinforce it. We're going to rewrite our definitions because that helps us reinforce those brain pathways for memorizing terms. So, the vocabulary that we need to get out of our way, there are four main ones. We have term, we have coefficient, we have like term, and we have constant. So take a minute. This should still be able to fit on that page where you wrote your objective and the heading, and write down term, coefficient, like term, constant. Whoopsie, didn't want to click that. And a term is a part of your expression. Remember, an expression is just a bunch of numbers, variables, and operations. So it's a part of that expression separated by addition or subtraction. When we did the evaluating in class today, we saw things like, for example, 3m plus 2. So 3m would be one term, and 2 would be another term. Okay, so you already are familiar with these things, but you just might not put the vocabulary word of term along with it. Our next vocabulary word that we need to know in order to do this lesson is coefficient. And a coefficient is anytime you have a term with a variable, for example, 3x, your coefficient is the number part of that term. So in this case, it would be the 3. So our term is 3x, the variable is x, and our coefficient is 3. All right, coefficient is the number in front of the variable. A like term. This is going to become really, really important in some things that we talk about next week when we are combining like terms. So like terms are two terms that have the exact same variable part. That means, like, if I have 3x and 2x, those are like terms. They have the exact same variable. Now, you have to also have the exact same exponent with the variable. So let's say this was 3x squared and this other one was 2x. They would not be like terms because they did not have the exact same variable part, including the exponent. Okay? And we're going to practice these so you'll get familiar with these terms. The last one is constant. And a constant is just any term in your expression that has no variable. So they're just your plain old numbers, like 6 or -5. Okay? If you need to pause the video and write those definitions down, please do so. When you're ready, go to the next page in your notebook, and we're going to do some practice questions. So go ahead and title that page Examples. Oopsie. Okay, so if I were to look at this expression here, I have 3x plus 4y plus 2x plus 7. That is our expression. Remember, an expression is made up of numbers, variables, and operations. And if I'm trying to identify my terms, first of all, I'm looking for all the different pieces and parts of my expression. So 3x is one part, 4y is another, 2x, and then 7. Those are the different terms I have. So I'm just going to list them, 3x, comma, 4y, 2x, and 7. All right? Now, when I'm looking for coefficients, remember from when you wrote the definitions down that a coefficient is the number in front of the variable. So I have a 3 right in front of my x, so that's one coefficient. I have a 4 in front of my y, that's another coefficient. And I have a 2 in front of this x, that is another coefficient. So my coefficients are 3, 4, and 2. The biggest mistake people make here is that they'll try and write that my coefficients are 3x, 4y, and 2x. Those are not coefficients, those are terms. Coefficients do not have the variable part in them. So we don't want the variable part, we just want the number part. Okay? Now, if we do like terms, a like term is any term that has the exact same variable part. So let's start with our first term here, our 3x. We're looking for another term that has the exact same variable part as 3x. 4y doesn't because 4y has a y, not an x, so that doesn't work. 2x has the exact same variable part. It also has an x. 7 has no variables, so that can't be a like term. So my like terms in this case are 3x and 2x. There is nothing that pairs up with this 4y. There's no other y term. And there's nothing that pairs up with this 7. There's no other plain old number term. The last thing we need to identify in our expression is the constant terms. The constant terms are the terms that do not have a variable. So 3x has a variable, so that's not a constant term. 4y has a variable, that's not a constant. 2y has a variable, that's not a constant. But we have 7 here that has no variable attached to it, so that is my constant. So I have, that's a really weird looking 7. Sorry. Pretend it's not so weird. That's weird too, but whatever. Okay, so I have my terms, my coefficients, my like terms, and my constants. Here's an example where it gets a little bit tricky. This is where people make a lot of mistakes when they're identifying the parts of an expression, because I have thrown negatives in here, okay? So just like I have been telling you guys for weeks and weeks and weeks, when you see subtraction, what do I want you to do? I want you to change it to adding the opposite. So this is actually going to become negative 2x plus 11, and then change this to addition and take the opposite of that term. So it's going to be negative 2x plus 11 plus negative 6x. Now, when I go to identify my terms and my constants and all that good stuff, I can't forget about those negatives. Those negatives are important. So here, my first term is going to be negative 2x. If you just put 2x, it's going to be marked wrong. I'll separate my terms by a comma. My next term is 11, and then my last term is negative 6x. The biggest problem people make is that they forget about that negative. They don't change this subtraction to addition, and then they put that one of their terms is just 6x. That's not going to work. That's going to get you no credit on that question. Okay, so those are my terms, including the negatives. Then let's talk about my coefficients. I'm not going to write that all out. The coefficients are the number part of a term with a variable. So let's look up in our expression. I have negative 2x. That has a variable, so the number part of that term is negative 2. Then I have 11, which does not have a variable, so I'm not going to look at that one. And then I have negative 6x. The number part of that term is negative 6. Once again, people leave off the negative signs and they get the question completely wrong. Do not make that same mistake. Next, the next thing that we have to identify is our like terms. Oh, hang on, I'm making my pen freak out. Like terms. And our like terms are any term that has the exact same variable part. So we can't mix x's and y's, we can't mix a's and b's. But if we look in our expression, I'll use yellow for this. The first term with a variable is negative 2x, and we need to find something that matches that variable, and that's going to be negative 6x. So our like terms for this are negative 2x and negative 6x. Don't forget the negatives. It will be wrong. I feel like a broken record because I say that all the time, and people still forget the negatives. Don't do it. The last thing we need to identify are the constants. Constants are the terms in an expression that do not have any variable part, and so in this case, we have plain old 11 all by itself. Okay? This next one that I'm going to give you is going to be the question for your reflection. I want you to see if you can identify the terms, the coefficients, the like terms, and the constants. It's a challenging one. Don't forget our definition of a like term. A like term is any term that has the exact same variable, including the exponent. Big hint there, guys. So please write that in your reflection when you write your when you turn your assignment in, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.